11 people, it's really not.
I don't know. It seems to me.
Well, considering, if you had a representative town meeting, you have on the average 125 to 250 people. How are you going to do that?
Either way, it's a lot.
So I think it's a lot easier this way.
But I'm not trying to be argumentative. I'm just saying that just how I see it. The fact that we have what a 2% turnout at town meetings, the town meetings the turnout at town meetings are people that are concerned with particular issues that are occurring at the time, which to some, if you're not interested in the issue, seems unfair, because, well, I have no voice in it. Well, you could go to town meeting, in which case you do have an interest in it. If you don't have an interest in it, then you don't go, because it doesn't matter to you.
One way you could look at that is that of the people that go to town meeting, maybe about 100 of them are there just because they're always there, and they're not initiative driven. They're there
because they feel patriotic towards the town.
Yes, that's right. And so from that 100 people, you could expect 11 to be elected and be councilors. Now, maybe more people than just the ones that regularly go to town meeting would run for office, which would be probably a good thing. But that's why I kind of agree with Al that it's not that big of a stretch to have 11 people when you're talking about well over 100, at least 100 that are already actively involved.
It's not the 11 people that seem to me to be the problem.
It's
the 11 people and the fact that they have to have a meeting every couple of weeks. Because I feel like that they are a legislative branch. There's still the executive branch whose job it is to carry out whatever the legislative branch decides. But 11 people deciding every 2 weeks, so, there really needs to be a stop sign at the edge of this road, or there needs to be, we need to straighten out the place underneath the railroad tunnel, blah, 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 all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's not
what
they
happen.
do. That's not what they do. They're writing laws. They're the legislative branch. Okay.
They're doing your bylaws.
Right.
Ordinances.
They're doing what you do at a town meeting when you vote on the stuff. That's
right. But if somebody wants to have the road straightened out underneath that railroad bridge on Main Street there, that's going to go through town meeting. That's not going to be an ordinance.
In our current system, that just shows how inefficient it is.
But not in the new system.
And if it fails, you got to wait another 6 months. And if it fails again,
right. But the whole idea of the charter review
people get killed at that intersection.
Right. But the point of the charter, that's right. But the point of the charter review is to fix the responsiveness and the responsibility of the town governors, as it were. That's not going to do it. Having a council won't do that. Then. According to what you just said.
No. We're attempting to define legislators, the legislative branch, as legislators, and the executive branch, which would consist of a mayor and his staff, which is the departments, as the executive, and take out all of the gray areas as to who's responsible for what. Day-to-day operations are going to be held in the executive branch, making laws in the legislative branch.
Right.
So when they're meeting, the councilors are meeting, they're changing the laws, and they're not going to be, hopefully not going to be meddling in things that have happened in the past, or trying to decide who's going to get a new paving and who's not. Now they might change a law that says how we allocate resources throughout the town, but specifically target a specific issue just doesn't seem reasonable for a legislative branch. Too many things come to the...
So if you had a complaint like that, you would go to the executive branch then?
You would... The executive branch would be the one that could handle it immediately and has the resources to handle it. If you're not getting satisfaction and you're interested in
excuse me,
in more of a person-to-person discussion, you're probably better off going to your counselor.
Okay. All right. I don't want to bog. I want you guys to.
The council would basically go, if you had something like that, and say you can't get remedy at your your executive branch. You could go back to your counselor. Your counselor then would do just what we do in our own state or federal government. Then they bring it up back in. It goes back in and they discuss with the mayor. But there's checks and balances for both organizations. So they just can't randomly do whatever they want. They have defined duties.
Of course.
And that's how it is. Right now you have your selectman and your town administrator, and they're both really the same branch. And
So just
so when you want a road straight, right now you go to the Board of Selectmen, go to a meeting and stuff because they're road commissions. Well, you're going to have a DPW department most likely rather than all these separate departments that have their own vehicles, and you'd have one DPW department, Public Works, and you may have someone there that's in charge of maintenance as well, and you have a road question comes down from the mayor. If there's a problem, you could talk to the mayor or the mayor's office and say, this is what I want. If it doesn't work,
I think
then you go back.
what the problem is with that, from the people that have talked to me about it, they just feel like that rules would end up being shoved down their throats instead of if it's at town meeting, they feel like they can still go there and air their complaints. Because all they have to do is get it on the warrant. And I agree with you guys. The warrants are just completely out of hand. 40 and 60 articles is outrageous and really hard to deal with.
People are still going to have very effective...
I don't know why we don't have 4 town meetings a year. So
they're still going to have a very close contact with their government. There's two ways. One is through interaction with the counselors. We're intending to put language in the charter where they have citizens' participation. And we are including in the charter a initiatives petitions, citizens petition type ability. So if the counselors aren't responding to them, the citizens can take it upon themselves to petition them to vote on a particular measure.
it sounds to me like you're using the form of state government as somewhat of a model for the way you want to set this up.
We're required to follow basic guidelines that the state provides.
Wherein lies the problem, by the way?
But we're allowed to take that basic form and then make modifications that will work better for the town.
To be honest with you, the discussions, the philosophical discussions about what's the basis of this that have occurred within our charter, nobody's referred to the state as a model.
No.
We've referred to the federal Constitution, the U.S. Constitution, as our model, with balance of power and legislative and executive branches, and so we go back to the founding fathers whenever we're trying to discuss philosophically what does this mean and how should it work. So nobody's holding up the state as an ideal.
Well, we're using the state. It gives us a guideline, gives us a template to work on, because the bottom line is when we get done, we present this at town meeting. If it's accepted at town meeting, it then has to go to the state legislature for approval. If you go too far out of the basic concept of how it works, then you may have a problem getting it approved.
That's right.
Right, which I think is part of the problem, though, too, is because the fact of the matter is because the state, which, by the way, doesn't run that well. I mean, for example, if you have a problem with a state contractor, you're screwed. Once it's out of the legislator and the legislators have decided they're going to write a check to these contractors, that's the way it's done. And, it's like trying to get toothpaste back in a tube after that. I hate to use an old cliche, but that's really what it's like. Once the contractors have charge of it, that's where you're going to find all of the waste. And so why does the waste not stop in Massachusetts? Because the contractors are just collecting checks. So you can't go back to the legislature and say, hey, these people aren't doing it right. And that needs to be changed. And I just think that's what we're going to end up with. Well, that's what it sounds like we're going to end up here. Because you guys are bound by state law. We have 22,000, and therefore we have to have 11 representatives. Because the state law says you have to have 11 representatives if you have 22,000, because that's the category fit in. My attitude is tough noogies. If we want to have 22 representatives because we've got 22,000, we want to have one per 1,000 or whatever, that should be up to the town, not up to the state.
I'm not sure that we couldn't do that.
Well, according to the background